Friends, family, fellow seekers of understanding, we gather today to delve into a narrative that resonates across millennia, a story woven into the very fabric of faith itself, the story of Isaac, the promised son. It is a tale of divine promise, human frailty, unwavering obedience, and the enduring power of covenant. To understand Isaac, we must first understand the context, the backdrop against which his life unfolded. We begin with Abraham, a man called from Ur of the Chaldeans, a man whose heart yearned for a connection with the divine. God, in his infinite wisdom, saw in Abraham a potential for extraordinary faith, a vessel through which a blessing could be poured out upon the nations. God's promise to Abraham was audacious, bordering on the unbelievable. He promised Abraham a land, a multitude of descendants, and a blessing that would extend to all families of the earth. Yet Abraham and his wife Sarah were childless, and they were well past the age of childbearing. The promise, therefore, seemed impossible, a distant dream flickering in the face of stark reality. Abraham's journey was not a smooth one. It was marked by trials, tests of faith, and moments of doubt. He faced famine, he journeyed to foreign lands, and he wrestled with the seemingly insurmountable barrier of Sarah's barrenness. Years passed, and the promise remained unfulfilled. Abraham, in his human fallibility, sought to hasten God's plan through Hagar, Sarah's handmaid. Ishmael was born, a son conceived not through divine promise but through human ingenuity. Yet God reiterated his covenant, clarifying that the promised son would come through Sarah. Sarah, upon hearing this, laughed, laughter born of incredulity, laughter that echoed the absurdity of the situation. How could a woman of her advanced age, a woman whose womb had long been closed, bear a child? But God, in his infinite power, is not bound by human limitations. He is the God of the impossible, the God who brings life from barrenness, light from darkness, and hope from despair. And so, in their old age, when all hope seemed lost, Isaac was born. His name, meaning he laughs, served as a constant reminder of Sarah's initial disbelief and the miraculous nature of his conception. Isaac's birth was not merely a biological event. It was a divine affirmation, a tangible manifestation of God's faithfulness. He was the embodiment of the promise, the living testament to God's ability to fulfill his word. Isaac's childhood was undoubtedly steeped in the awareness of his unique status. He was not just a son, he was the promised son, the heir to a divine covenant. He was the focal point of God's plan, the link between Abraham's generation and the generations to come. Yet, even in his privileged position, Isaac's life was not devoid of trials. The most profound test of Abraham's faith, and by extension Isaac's, came on Mount Moriah. God commanded Abraham to offer Isaac as a burnt offering. Imagine the anguish, the incomprehensible pain that must have gripped Abraham's heart. The son he had waited for, the son of promise, the son he loved dearly, was to be sacrificed. This was not a mere test of obedience. It was a test of Abraham's very understanding of God's character. How could a God of love and promise demand such a horrific act? Isaac, though young, played a crucial role in this narrative. He carried the wood for the offering, walking alongside his father, unaware of the true purpose of their journey. When he asked, "Where is the lamb for the burnt offering?" Abraham's response, "God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering, my son," was both a statement of faith and a profound foreshadowing of God's ultimate provision. As Abraham prepared to sacrifice Isaac, the angel of the Lord intervened, stopping him at the last moment. God provided a ram caught in a thicket, a substitute sacrifice. This event, known as the Akedah, the binding of Isaac, is a cornerstone of faith. It demonstrates Abraham's unwavering obedience, his willingness to surrender his most precious possession to God. It also reveals God's mercy, his compassion, and his ultimate provision. The Akedah is not merely a historical event. It is a profound theological statement. It foreshadows the ultimate sacrifice, the sacrifice of God's own Son, Jesus Christ, on the cross. Just as God provided a substitute for Isaac, he provided a substitute for humanity, a lamb without blemish, to atone for our sins. The Akedah reveals the heart of God, his willingness to sacrifice his own son for the redemption of mankind. Isaac's life after the Akedah continued to be intertwined with the unfolding of God's covenant. He married Rebekah, a woman chosen by God, a woman who, like Sarah, was initially barren. Isaac prayed for her, and God answered his prayer, granting them twin sons, Esau and Jacob. The story of Esau and Jacob is another chapter in the saga of the promised seed. Esau, the elder, was a skilled hunter, a man of the field. Jacob, the younger, was a quiet man, dwelling in tents. Esau, in a moment of impulsiveness, sold his birthright to Jacob for a bowl of stew. This act, driven by immediate gratification, had profound consequences, altering the course of their lives and the destiny of their descendants. Jacob, with the help of his mother Rebekah, deceived his father Isaac, obtaining the blessing intended for Esau. This act of deception, though morally questionable, served to fulfill God's purpose. God had already revealed to Rebekah that the elder son would serve the younger. Jacob, despite his flaws, was chosen to carry on the covenant, to become the father of the 12 tribes of Israel. Isaac's later years were marked by blindness, a physical limitation that mirrored his spiritual insight. Though physically blind, he was able to see the unfolding of God's plan, the continuation of the covenant through Jacob. He blessed Jacob, confirming the divine choice, and he lived to see the beginning of the fulfillment of God's promise. Isaac's life, though less dramatic than Abraham's or Jacob's, is a vital link in the chain of God's covenant. He was the bridge between generations, the embodiment of the promise, the son through whom the blessing would flow. He was a man of faith, a man of prayer, a man who trusted in God's faithfulness. The story of Isaac is not just a historical narrative. It is a story that speaks to us today. It reminds us that God is faithful to his promises, even when circumstances seem impossible. It reminds us that God's plans are often beyond our understanding, that he works in mysterious ways, and that he uses flawed individuals to accomplish his purposes. Isaac's life teaches us the importance of obedience, even when we don't understand God's commands. It teaches us the power of prayer, the importance of seeking God's guidance, and the need to trust in his provision. It teaches us that God's covenant is not based on human merit, but on his grace, his unmerited favor. The story of Isaac is a story of hope, a story of redemption, a story of God's enduring love. It is a story that reminds us that we are part of a larger narrative, a divine plan that extends beyond our own lives. It is a story that invites us to trust in God's faithfulness, to embrace his promises, and to walk in obedience to his will. In a world filled with uncertainty, the story of Isaac offers a beacon of hope, a reminder that God is in control, that he is working out his purposes, and that he will fulfill his promises. Let us, like Isaac, trust in God's faithfulness. Let us walk in obedience to his commands, and let us embrace the hope that he offers. For in his faithfulness, we find our strength, our hope, and our eternal inheritance.